what would be the best case outcome, the best possible scenario from the Xi-Trump summit this week?
First of all, the double irony is first that the kinds of demands the U.S. is making will be in the long run better for China. And second, the list of demands had largely been negotiated among the trade negotiators, almost all of them, before there was the disruption based upon the enforcement of those. So given that, and subsequent to the breakdown, there has been a hardening of positions in both countries, both the political leaders as well as the general public. And this puts a lot of pressure on the Xi-Trump visit. Happily, President Xi is strong enough and President Trump is mercurial enough to be able to break through that inertia that we currently have. So if we look at actual scenarios.
Hold on, Robert. Robert, let me jump in here because I want to push back on something you said at the beginning, which was the demands the U.S. has made would be ultimately good for China. Do you really believe that China wants or is committed to the kinds of intellectual property reforms and outside enforcement that the Trump administration wants?
Well, first of all, let's look at the list. The first three or so do cluster around intellectual property protection in China, forced technology transfer and joint venture, and cyber theft. Those are the big three. So we have to unpack them and to see what they're like. First of all, intellectual property protection. This is essential for China in order for China to become a leading innovator in the world. That's their goal, to have indigenous innovation, become a world leader in all the major new technologies. And for that to happen, you need intellectual property protection. I have visited the intellectual property courts, the new in Shanghai. They have it in Tianjin and in Beijing and in Guangdong province. And these are really serious efforts. It has a long way to go, sure, but they are serious efforts because China needs that to develop their own innovation. On forced joint ventures, they've passed a new law, the foreign investment law, which now says that those things are no longer necessary. Cyber theft, the sensitive area, has to be settled privately. So those issues are really important for China, but opening markets as well, and preventing state-owned enterprise subsidies. These are all critical areas that would be ultimately better for China. Although for China's own developmental model, they do need some kind of state support. Those are some sensitive issues. But you put your finger on the right place because enforcement is the key. And that's what made it break down. The U.S. insisted on very strict enforcement, and for China that was an insult against their dignity and their sovereignty, and because of the public exposure.
Of course, but it's also insulting for U.S. companies to have their intellectual property stolen, Robert. I mean, that's probably the bigger insult is that, if you're Microsoft and 90% of Windows installations on computers were pirated, that's insulting as well. But the worst case scenario would be that both sides decide not to attend. We still have a few days until they actually get there. But assuming both Xi and Trump do arrive, what would be the worst possible outcome of an actual meeting?
Well, clearly a signal that they are. What we expect is that the presidents will signal that they will give their senior negotiators the marching orders to reach a deal. That's the best scenario. And we will judge anything short of that to be to analyze. I don't think it's going to be difficult to analyze what happened because we're clearly not going to get a deal. They're not going to get a complex 150-page deal signed and sealed in Osaka. There's no chance of that. But what we will do is we will read the tea leaves of exactly what they say, and the expectation is they will give their top leaders a mandate to get a deal done over a period of time. Anything short of that, we'll know there's problems, and that could be followed by tariffs and then a long-term battle.